we've got to do better to connect the dots and let people know the reason you can't afford a home is because of these failed immigration policies. The reason you're not going to be able to afford your food is because of these failed immigration policies. And the same can go for the hospitality industries.
The very severely mentally ill, deranged Jasmine Crockett, Democrat Congresswoman and hero of the left. The reason you're not going to be able to afford your food, what is it, because of illegal aliens? What kind of a racist is this woman? She wants the illegal... You won't be able to afford a home because of illegal aliens. You won't be able to afford food because of illegal aliens. And what she's trying to argue is that we need more of them. That's how dumb the Democrats have gotten there. To call them dumb is insulting to dumb people. Truly amazing stuff. Well, a very good Friday to you, and welcome back once again. So many extraordinary stories. So much news. And I have a story out of the Christian Science Monitor today that I would like to share with you. A wonderful reporter, Caitlin Babcock. Very nice-looking young woman, staff writer at the Christian Science Monitor, and the headline is, Meet the Loud Majority. And the loud majority is in quotation marks. College conservatives are silent no longer. This is exactly what needs to happen in the United States of America because these indoctrination factories run by left-wing loons who are all anti-Semites and advocate assassination and violence, criminality, political violence. Firebomb your neighbor's Tesla, the usual stuff. It's okay to want to assassinate CEOs. CEOs they want to see in New York City and make a sexual icon of the murderer because that's today's Democrat Party. There's an update on that out of the New York City subway system, too. Got Democrats riding the subway there. But back to Caitlin Babcock of the Christian Science Monitor. Under the headline, Meet the Loud Majority, College Conservatives are silent no more. The first sentence in quotation marks. It is cool to be a conservative nowadays. It's cool to be a conservative nowadays. That's the message Brillin Hollyhand, an 18-year-old Republican activist, had for a group of students gathered at Pennsylvania State University for a college Republicans conference. Inside the Student Life Center, speakers like Hollyhand, who is also a best-selling author and podcast host, encouraged attendees to share their political convictions in person and on social media. The silent majority is no longer, he told the group. Isn't that amazing? Mr. Hollyhand, and his name is Brillin, B-R-I-L-Y-N, Brillin Hollyhand, and 18-year-old, and pretty amazing stuff. So we said the silent majority is no longer. Thankfully, we're the loud majority. The loud majority. The silent majority is no more, and now we're the loud majority. Conservative activists who have long viewed college campuses as progressive training grounds are spreading a message that colleges and the younger generation aren't just the domain of liberals anymore. In the run-up to last November's election, right-wing podcaster Charlie Kirk swept through campuses on his You're Being Brainwashed tour. And it was great stuff. I don't know if you saw any of the videos from that, but it was great. Set up tents. Charlie Kirk set up a tent at a college campus and sit there at a banquet table and let college students come up and ask him questions. And a lot of them were vile, vulgar fascists who committed acts of violence or threatened violence. And Charlie Kirk was calm, cool, and collected through it all. Much more intelligent than the brainwashed zombies of the death cult that is the Democrat Party. But his Charlie Kirk's You're Being Brainwashed tour, great stuff, attracted thousands of students at swing state colleges. Polls showed President Donald Trump made significant gains at the ballot box with voters under 30 years old, particularly men. Since the election, there's been momentum among young conservatives across the country, said Gypsum Zhang. Gypsum Zhang, a Chinese-American, presumably a student, the president of the Young Americans for Freedom, their chapter at the George Washington University. Young Americans for Freedom, great organization, wonderful. George Washington University here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Zhang says his club has increased by 40 new members this semester out of a student population of over 25,000, with club events drawing a wider turnout. A recent talk by conservative media figure Ben Shapiro sold out more than 400 tickets in 10 minutes. The College Republican Club at Penn State University has grown by about 15 people this year. Members were surprised to hear loud chants of Trump, Trump, for their homecoming parade float last fall. And I got to tell you, Trump versus Kamala Harris. Yeah, I see I got an update for you on Kamala Harris, too, because she wanted desperately to participate in campaign activities in Wisconsin at the election of the Supreme Court justice there recently. And all the Democrats running the show in Wisconsin said, no thanks, Kamala Harris. We'll just have random homeless junkies do it instead because we don't want you. Now, of course, liberal student activism, they write in the Christian Science Monitor, of course, liberal student activism is still dominant. College students were among those joining protests across the United States on April 5th against President Trump and Elon Musk. And they're calling for a genocide of the Jews, just like the little Nazis that they're being trained to be. And the wave of student protests over the war in Gaza, because they're pro-radical Islamic jihadi terrorists and anti-Semites. Even their Semites are anti-Semites. Isn't amazing? Over the war in Gaza last spring brought many college campuses to a grinding halt. Deutschland, über alles. Honestly, Mr. Trump has frozen or put under review federal funding for several elite universities, such as Columbia University and the University of Pennsylvania, that he accuses of ignoring anti-Semitism or ideological indoctrination. They're going to be busy with that, no doubt. No doubt. In fact, it's another story we didn't get to yesterday, was the former president of the Columbia University who was interviewed by members of Congress, and she said that she was unaware of any anti-Semitism on the campus at Columbia University, where she was the president of Columbia University. And asked, well, wait a minute, but students were spitting on Jews and terrorizing people if they had yarmulkes or a Star of David around their neck. You'd be threatened. You'd be being spat upon as being physically assaulted with your monkeypox germs that the Democrats so enjoy. They do enjoy monkeypox, don't they? They're kind of a weird bunch, but monkeypox they like. And the president of Columbia University, she didn't know about any of that, her interview with members of Congress. And, oh, gosh, I didn't know there was any I didn't know people were being assaulted. I didn't know that faculty members were encouraging, they were putting out flyers, faculty members and other radical students, genocidal, racist students, anti-Semites, and the faculty members who were handing out pro-Hamas propaganda on the campus, and she didn't know anything about it. And the members of Congress were slack-jawed that she was claiming, probably lying. I don't know how dumb you can be, how ignorant you can be. But I was reading through these stories about her ignorance, which is epic, and her claims, which must be false. And she was presumably under oath. We don't prosecute people for lying under oath to Congress in Washington. We reward people for it. Isn't that amazing? So we got that. But I observed, I said, well, listen, she's a liberal at an Ivy League institution who was given the job largely because of her genitalia, and she doesn't know what's in the news. I like to say about the news media and other leftists that they don't follow the news. They don't know what's in the news because they don't follow the news. And the explanation for that is they watch MSDNC, which never actually covers the news, just Democrat Party angry, firebombing propaganda, assassinating propaganda, all that stuff. Amazing, amazing things. But she didn't know anything about any of the stuff that was going on the campus there. Yeah, it was Katrina Armstrong, the now former president of Columbia University. She's like, oh, gosh, I didn't know any of this was going on my campus. Well, if you still worked there, you should certainly be fired. I'll say that much for you, you mental people. But rising conservatism on college campuses, good stuff. Young people are potentially the most conservative generation that we have experienced in maybe 50 to 60 years. Democrat Party consultant David Shore told Ezra Klein of the New York Times, both communists, presumably. Last month, Mr. Shore points to the impact of the COVID pandemic and the dramatic increases in smartphone usage as potential factors for this political shift. That's why the left wants to shut down speech on the internet and why they're so angry with Elon Musk, because he believes in free speech and he took over Twitter, which they used to lie to the American people constantly. Pretty amazing stuff we've got going on there. Yes, sir. The Democrat Party, if they're talking, they're lying. And sure, they're ignorant. They don't follow the news because they get their news from corrupt, fake news outlets like MSDNC and the New York Times. But never mind that. Pretty amazing stuff. All right, Michael. Let's take another phone call. Let's go to Dave. Dave is here. Let's go to Dave calling from White Plains, New York. Dave, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Yeah, hi, Chris. I'm on speaker. Does it seem clear?
It seems clear at the moment, sure, yeah.
Okay, good, because I don't think I know how to turn it off. I'm an Android person. I'm sitting on an Apple phone at the moment.
Okay.
I won't give away your New York thing, but maybe the person who came into the subway was thinking of a new form of CPR.
Yeah, it might have been. That might explain it. Yeah, you're right. I've got to get to that story.
Chris, I spent my career as an emergency doctor. It probably would be more effective, truthfully. So that's just a comment. G-Defy shoes. In this house, there are 2 of us and 14 pairs of G-Defys.
No kidding. Is that right?
Yeah, I've started buying Eons. I like red Eons. They don't make them, so I got 6 pairs of those, 4 pairs of red Eons. And my work shoes were a pair of white Eons. I expected to go a year like my Skechers. I'm in my 4th year with them, and they're still going.
That's great. The G-Defys, which I advertise, and you're an emergency doctor, so that is
well, I'm truthfully, the reason for my call is I stopped emergency doctoring about 20 years ago. I got back to my 200,000th patient and said, beat the lawyers, that was enough. I'm calling. Let me give you one more quickie before I get to my stock thing of Obama's stock.
I only got about one more minute for you.
All right. At any rate, my thing. All right, Obama. I was mostly into stocks at that time. I think it was the 9th of March in 2009, Obama sort of suggested this might be a good time to buy stocks. They had been going down up to that time. I put 2 graphs up somewhere on your X page under a picture of something.
Uh-huh.
It's been a straight rocket ship up since then. So Obama gave a great recommendation. He helped me greatly. I took his advice.
That was insider trading. If Trump said that, the Democrats say it was insider trading.
He actually mobilized his economy with it, and it was the exact day that the market changed. So you can take it for what you want to think. My quickies were, if you put $1 a foot down, you could pay our national debt of $40 trillion. We'll get to that by going back and forth to the sun 43 times.
Wow, that's good. And at $1 a second, more than
around the world, 320,000 times circumference.
Wow!
And the last thing I really would like to get to you, since you're a flyer and I have 1,800 hours with the University of Michigan Flying Club. Do you not think that if Kennedy didn't get his ego to him, young Kennedy, and had been flying a nice sedate Skyhawk for $200,000 instead of his $1.2 million Super X Saratoga, he probably would arrive just perfectly safe.
Well, if his sister-in-law had gotten there on time, then they would have landed before the sun.
But that was the first time he flew without the instructor by his side. I got into a Bonanza about the same level of plane with 800 hours. He was dealing with about 180 hours or so.
Right.
And you can't fly those planes. They fall out of the sky real easy. That's why they go fast.
Yeah, the Bonanza with the V-tail Bonanza.
It was truthfully, the U of Michigan Flyer had a nice straight-tailed Debonair, which was a junior one, but it had been upgraded from 220 horsepower to the 285 horsepower.
Well, I love your debt numbers, good stuff, and your GDFI story, great as well. I've got to say, good stuff. Dr. Dave calling from White Plains. When we were kids in Pelham, we used to, my brothers and I was going to drag your brains from here to White Plains. Going to drag your brains from here to White Plains. We were kids, because it's kind of stuff kids say. Dr. Dave, thank you for the call. Great stats on the sun and going around the earth 320,000 times. Amazing. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. Now, Dr. Dave from White Plains in New York, made mention of a story that I want to share with you out of New York. And I will, he said he didn't want to, spoiler alert, the whole thing, but I want to share that with you coming up. We've got so much out of California. They're charging students, Stanford University students and rabble, 12 Stanford students, to be charged with felonies because they offended the left. That's what they did. But they've already cut a crooked deal with the felony, criminal, Democrat, radical, anti-Semite leftists. I've got that coming up, as well as madness on the New York City subway. I've got that coming up. But I want to share with you also President Trump on Truth Social, which is like Twitter, but he owns it because he created it. And President Trump on Truth Social says the House, and there was a hearing yesterday, I shared with you the hearing yesterday, about daylight saving time and maybe doing away with daylight saving time. President Trump posted today, pretty good stuff. The House and Senate, he said, should push hard for more daylight at the end of the day. Very popular. And most importantly, no more changing of the clocks. A big inconvenience. And for our government, a very costly event. DJT, he signed it. Donald J. Trump, DJT. But he says the House and Senate should push hard for more daylight at the end of the day. We were talking about this yesterday because there was a hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday about daylight saving time. And I, too, am in favor. I was pushing yesterday for more daylight at the end of the day. I don't have kids going to bus stops, but, you got to learn about the dark sometime. Be good for the kids. Get up early. Get out to the bus stop. Go say hello to Tuna Bell. This is crazy out of California, Santa Clara, California. They have a district attorney there, Jeff Rosen. Jeff Rosen. Is he Santa Clara? Is he a George Soros guy? I don't know. I'd have to look him up. Pro-Palestinian protesters, genocidal anti-Semites, Jew haters. Pro-Palestinian protesters charged with felonies for takeover of Stanford president's office. So the president of Stanford University, a left-wing radical, had its office taken over by Jew-hating, genocidal, armband-wearing, goose-stepping, leftist, indoctrinated Nazis, little Nazis. So the Santa Clara County District Attorney is pursuing criminal charges against a dozen pro-Palestinian protesters. Kind of a little past the window, don't you think? But who were arrested in June. They're arrested in June, so that means that has to be last year, and they're getting around to it now. All right? In June, after barricading themselves inside the Stanford University president's office, all 12 defendants, including 8 current Stanford students face felony charges of vandalism and conspiracy to trespass. That's pretty loose compared to trespass. You know, trespassing is not murder, but they engaged in a conspiracy to trespass. Among the most serious charges against demonstrators involved with pro-Palestinian campus protests in California last spring. Warrants have been issued, and the protesters will be arraigned later this month. District Attorney Jeff Rosen announced on Thursday. Dissent is American, he said. Vandalism is criminal. Well, you guys should all be in prison because you wrecked my city more than once. You vandalized the area around the White House. You attacked the Reagan building and the Reagan Center. You set fire to the Church of the Presidents. You burned the only building in Lafayette Park. You looted the neighborhood I'm in right now around the radio station. You looted my neighborhood where I live in Washington, D.C. more than once and more than once in both instances. You sack, loot, and plunder. You terrorize Walgreens and CVS stores. Everything has to be under bulletproof plastic because the Democrat Party is a violent criminal mob stealing everything they can steal. He said, dissent is American, vandalism is criminal. Oh, you just noticed that, huh? And it only took you the better part of a year to come to that conclusion. And yesterday he said, today I'm announcing charges against 12 people who intentionally crossed the clear and bright line between dissent and destruction. How about spitting on the Jews for wearing yarmulkes and having a Star of David? How about burning everything, sacking, looting, and plundering? Maybe you should all be held accountable. Wearing masks, the protesters forced their way into the building where the Stanford president's office is located early in the morning of June 5th, again last year, in a highly organized and orchestrated manner. They broke windows and furniture, splashed fake blood, and disabled security cameras, causing an estimated $700,000 in damages, according to the DA. Democrats believe they're entitled. That's free speech. I know that Democrat members of Congress said this was free speech. Kamala Harris helped to raise money for rioting, looting, violent mobs because they needed bail money so they could get back on the street to commit more crimes. This was not an anonymous space in a nondescript building, Rosen said. Oh, I see. So you can do it in another space in a nondescript building. But when it's the president of Stanford University, then it's a felony. See? But if it's somebody else's business, well, loot and plunder and burn as you will. It was a working office of people dedicated to students. You mean dating them or what? A public safety officer was also allegedly injured. Allegedly, but it's almost a year later and they're still not sure. So they have to say allegedly. While attempting to remove the students. Amazing stuff. In an open letter sent shortly after the incident, Richard Seller, Stanford's then interim president, is he a woman? Because it's a Richard, could be a woman with Democrats. And Provost Jenny Martinez, is he a man? Because they said they were appalled and deeply saddened by the protesters' actions. Tools found in protesters' backpacks included an electric grinder. Sure, an electric grinder. Why would you want to know where they're making coffee? What are they doing there? Hammer, they got that like monkey poop coffee thing. It's their special blend. They had an electric grinder, hammers, crowbars, chisels, screwdrivers, goggles, numerous straps and cables. That was just for recreational sex, I think. These people, I got to tell you, they're not well. Speaking of which, so that now they got 12 people charged with felonies, and it took them almost a year. And that's just because it was the university president's office. And if it had been any place else, they make it clear in their own statements. If it had been any place else, then there would be no charges. There would be no felony charges. No, none of this. Now, Byron York, changing the subject altogether. Byron York, the wonderful journalist Byron York, who lives in Washington, D.C. I see him in the neighborhood sometimes. Not very chatty, but, good, reliable guy. And And his post this morning on Twitter is this: the New York Times is worried that subway necrophilia will make the city look bad. Now, excuse me, what is this? Subway necrophilia? And that's the, listen to this. It's the New York Times, and Byron York pulled a passage from the New York Times. There was a man went on the New York City subway system where he died. And then a Democrat got on board the same train. And listen to this. This is from the New York Times. They don't want to write it, but they felt they had to. The person who died boarded an R train around 8 p.m., according to a law enforcement official with knowledge of the matter and the internal document that they've already referenced. It was unclear on Thursday when or how the person died. So we can assume that he was murdered or committed suicide or died of a fatal drug overdose with fentanyl from China. A man entered the same train car around 11 p.m. Again, he died around 8 p.m. And 3 hours later, he's still on the New York City subway train, dead. Another man entered the train. He's a Democrat. You'll see why. Entered the train car around 11 p.m. 3 hours later at the Whitehall Street South Ferry Station in the financial district, according to the official. Within 45 minutes, another 45 minutes goes by. The man saw the dead man and began rummaging through his pockets. The New York Times writes that like, well, naturally, of course, got a dead guy, start ripping him off. The official said, the man then began to have sex with the body, the dead body, according to the official and the document. That is necrophilia, that is having sex with a dead person. And not only that, he's gay. A gay necrophiliac because, it wasn't a dead woman, it was a dead man. And so a Democrat boarded the train after the dead guy laid there for 3 hours from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then got on down to the financial district. And still 45 minutes later, where was he then? He starts rummaging through the pockets of the dead guy who was on the train car with him. Then he says, hey, what the hell? Can't expect a guy to hold everything back. So he immediately starts having sex with the dead body of the man that he just robbed. Now, the Democrats are going to identify this guy and run him for mayor because I think the Democrats will all vote for this person. That is a heck of a story. And Byron York, reading the New York Times because he has to, said, wow, I think I'm going to pull that one. Yeah. And it's the people on Twitter, quite remarkable. Hey, the New York Times finally found a subway crime that they'd report to their readers. Woo, man. And the dead body on the subway train for 3 hours. And then what happened? Did the guy say, hey, there's a dead man here. Somebody notify the police. No, first he robbed him. Then he sexually assaulted the dead body of the man. New York, New York, it's a town that is hell. Man, I am telling you, the crime rate is up and the economy's down. New York, New York. Don't ride the subway, and whatever you do, don't die on the subway, because that's the last thing you want. Well, my grandfather died on the New York City subway, and you'll never believe what happened next. A Democrat boarded the train, and then, well, according to the New York Times anyway, and they would know, they talked to an anonymous person who is familiar with the, wow.
Police are looking for a man behind a vile attack on a subway train in Lower Manhattan. A warning for you, though, some of the details you're about to hear are very disturbing. Law enforcement sources with direct knowledge of the case say that this man on your screen performed sex acts on another man who died on board an R train. NYPD officers responded to reports of a body on a train at the Whitehall subway station just after midnight yesterday. When officers looked at video from subway cameras, our police sources say they found the man in the yellow hoodie sexually abusing the corpse, stopping only when passengers entered or exited the train.
Stopping, and other passengers entered, and he was having, so this is going on for a long time, and other New Yorkers are getting on the train, stepping off the train. Michael is mimicking someone stepping on a subway train and then seeing what you would see because it's New York and then stepping off the train. The local media now have it too. Man accused of sex with a corpse on New York City's subway train. We need to post a picture of this Democrat because, man, oh man, man accused of a heinous crime in the New York City subway. Suspect wanted for having sex with a corpse of a homeless man. That's another. The New York Times didn't have that detail because they're like, what's the difference? What do we care? Because in New York, you know what? They've come up with a solution for mentally ill homeless people. And the solution is leave them there to die. That's the Democrat Party's fix for that. They've done the same thing in Washington, D.C. I was talking about the crazy racist screaming on the sidewalk in front of my building the other day. Yeah, so there is the vicinity of Whitehall because the corpse was a homeless man, which I don't think that is safe sex. What do you think? Of course, I don't know whether he brought anything with us. The suspect was last seen wearing a blue baseball cap, black hooded jacket, and yellow hooded sweatshirt, jeans, red and white sneakers, and was carrying a backpack. Did he have a Kamala Harris for President T-shirt on? Because that's the Democrat Party. Anyone with information regarding this incident should notify the Democratic National Committee because they've got a guy here that they want to run for public office. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Ron, calling from Northwest Washington, D.C., where we also have a subway. Ron, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Chris, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate the information you give me. And I mentioned it before. I met you at the event for the Fisher House.
Fisher House, the great people at Fisher House. Yes, sir.
I met you at the event, and I was a homeless veteran at the time. And you were so kind. You even offered me a meal in the courtyard. And I never forgot that. Thank you for the offer. I didn't refuse that time because I was working two minimum wage jobs at the time, and I didn't feel right, at the time. But anyway, this immigration thing, the illegal immigrants, easy to get them in. Why is it so hard to get rid of them? And is it only MS-13 people that they're trying to get rid of, or all the illegals that came in, period? Because from listening to the regular media, or the mainstream media, should I say, it seems like they only want to get rid of the gang members.
They don't. The Democrats, and that means the media too, they don't even want to get rid of the gang members. They're fighting to get every gang member back from El Salvador that they can get back. They're fighting hammer and sickle, hammer and tong to get gang members back. They want all the illegal aliens in the country, all the gang members that they can get into the country, and they will fight you tooth and nail to the end. If you say, no, we should deport illegal aliens, they will fight you. They will call you Hitler. They will call you crazy names because they're the left. And the answer is why we get them out. The short answer, Ron, is Democrats, right?
Yeah, you're right. But, Chris, these people came here with literally just the clothes on their back.
Right.
Who the hell pays for them coming in here?
Well, wait till you hear. We've got Jasmine Crockett. We've got a Jasmine Crockett soundbite today saying that the illegal aliens, that's what is it causing? A housing crisis and food prices. And we're not, but the reason is we're kicking them out or something. Jasmine Crockett, she's a member of Congress. Ron, where do you hear this stuff? It's absolutely berserk. It's insane. But I've run out the clock on you, Ron. I keep doing this because so much chatty stuff. But, Ron, I'm very happy that you called in. I'm glad you called in. I'm grateful because you're obviously a good man and a good American. And you deserve the respect of the government And the Democrat Party, I think, does not afford you that respect.
I wish they did. But thanks for taking my call.
You bet, Ron. Saluting you, my friend. That is a, boy, there are, and it's true, why are we just not deporting illegal aliens who are in the country illegally, especially gang members? And the short answer is Democrats. Democrats are fighting angrily, bitterly, rhetorically, in an accusatory fashion, attacking normal, well-adjusted, intelligent Americans that respect our culture, our sovereignty, our borders, our laws. And the Democrat Party, rank and file and senior leadership, have contempt for all of those vitally important civilizational things that make this country the greatest country in the world that everybody wants to come to. But the Democrat Party, they're fleeing. They're going to England and things because other English country, whiter countries, you know how the left are.
We have judges that are out of control that say, oh, bring them back, bring them back. We don't want them back. We don't want them back.
Well, the local media in New York, they've got more of an update on the New York City subway episode, and it doesn't get any better from there, I got to tell you. In fact, the corpse was robbed and then raped in every way imaginable. And when and we've got an ID on the person they're looking for. Looks like an illegal alien. They've got his name. Carlos Garcia is the perpetrator they're looking for. They've got photographs, and they've got what looks like a previous mugshot from Carlos Garcia, and the myriad ways in which he sexually assaulted. And then when he was done, left the corpse on the subway train, and another Democrat came along and robbed him again. Robbed him again. New York is not as friendly as it used to be. Well, depending on your definition of friendly, I guess, because a lot of Democrats might look at this and say, hey, being nice, he's living on.